wonderful to be in your company, previewing all the action in the company of one of the hardest working men in media, Julien Laurens, and Aston Villa captain Rachel Corsie. Rachel, how's the rehab going?
It's actually going well, I can say finally. Back in the pitch this week, which is a little unfortunate because we obviously have a Christmas break in the WSL season. So I get even more hard running to go for the next few weeks for me. But it's nice to be back on the grass and also back in the grass with the team.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to hear your thoughts ahead of obviously a big Premier League weekend, match week 16, headlined by that Manchester derby. You've both picked out some of your top moments of Manchester derbies in past. I'm going to start with you, Jules, because you have obviously gone above and beyond. You've not chosen one moment. How many have you chosen?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've got a few, simply because I think because of the quality of the game and what we've seen in recent history, especially. But even before that, there have been a lot of special moments, and I think everybody will probably remember where they were on that day there when Rooney scored one of the greatest goals in English football history, probably the Nanny cross. Okay, maybe there's a bit of shins involved somewhere, but we still can't take it away. And the celebration was so iconic that I think that's very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is another one of your moments?
Yeah, and obviously the score in itself, because City going to Old Trafford and winning 6-1, and then again the celebration more, the goal itself is not so much that great, but the Mario Balotelli, why always me, I think again. I stayed in the history books.
Yeah, and then you've gone for this brace from Pogba as well.
My boy, I had to pick him, really. And I remember the week leading into the game, he said to me that he would score and that he would play well, and it was a time where there was a lot of criticism around him. And I think this is what made him so special, the ability to make those runs from deep into the box, the finishing, and I think probably one of his greatest games in his career.
Rachel, this was your moment?
Yeah, well, I picked this one because I was actually in the stadium that day. So yeah, that was a good one for me. I probably prefer the derby a little further back than this, though. Just I feel there was a bit more edge to it. Maybe lately it's not quite had the same feel personally.
That was really late as well, wasn't it?
It was a late winner. Yeah.
Oh, I thought we had footage of you in this. No, we don't have. That's what I was waiting for.
I'm grateful there isn't footage of me in that moment. Yeah, I think that was.
Did you celebrate like mad on the goal?
I think there was some serious celebrations.
Basically, all you've done is remind us that this is a game of heroes to be made, a big moment in Manchester, a game where now the world comes to a standstill, basically. And for Ruben Amorim, this is his first taste of the Manchester derby. Is he the right man to finally get United back challenging for titles?
A new sheriff in charge for Manchester United.
It's amazing. It's a real an honor.
A mammoth club that has been underperforming, and to turn things around, Ruben Amorim may well need tact as well as tactics.
I'm the right guy for this moment.
Manchester United hoping that the good days will come back again. They are putting their trust in Ruben Amorim.
I want to be very clear with our fans. It will take a lot of time.
Ruben, thank you for talking to us. How are you feeling about your first Manchester derby?
The same as any other game. Anxious, starting to understand what is the best 11 to face Manchester City, and we know that it's a tough match here in this league. Every match is tough in this league, and against a great team that won a lot in the last years, and with a great coach.
What do you know about the history of this fixture? What have people around you said to you about it?
I just follow a lot of Premier League, and you remember the kick from Rooney, some big results, even in Old Trafford, that we had in the time of Sir Alex, and big results. So I think it's a different time, and it's hard for the Manchester United fans to cope with that, but we want to win, and that's all.
Obviously, you've already faced Manchester City this season when you were manager of Sporting. Does that 4-1 win help you in any way ahead of the weekend?
Nothing. Just help to people get it's living about this game. I can understand better now the way they play, but they can change the way they play with just one signal from Pep.
How much respect do you have for him, and how much do you relish the opportunity as a manager to be face-to-face with someone like that?
Pep is one of the best in history. So we were always focused on trying to win this kind of game, but it's never easy. In the last games they had some problems, but they are a team also, and I follow Premier League for a long time. They have these moments, and then after January they go up, and in the end always win the Premier League. So we could change the context. I will be very, very happy. But every game you can win it, and we will go to the game to win it. That's no doubt about that.
So first taste of the Manchester derby for Ruben Amorim. He's already faced Pep Guardiola's Manchester City in his last game in charge of Sporting. He's already won, but it's a totally different story this time around. And what I found interesting, Rachel, from that interview was the fact he said he's still trying to work out his best 11 to face Manchester City. Do you think he knows his best 11 just yet?
I think he probably has an idea of his best 11, but I think within that there's always, you have to sort of tailor that. You might make certain decisions in certain positions to suit who you are playing. You know, it's one thing to know your absolute best 11, but if you know you're playing a side, even despite Man City's form, you've got to respect the players they have and the quality they still do have. So there are still decisions to make, even though you might know these are my best 11 if, you know, I had to just write it down on a bit of paper. I think he's very honest about the fact he's still open to being convinced. I think that lets players know that through this week's training, you know, you've still got an opportunity. You have to still keep showing me every day. And I think from his perspective, he still is living in that position of the players still need to keep proving to him, which means he's probably still just getting that little extra from the players day to day, which I think helps them to keep pushing themselves to be at the best level they can be, which they'll need to be in this game.
It's been a big squad review so far, hasn't it? Because even for Amad Traore, for example, who we saw as a right wing back for pretty much every single game, he played inside 10 on Thursday night in the Europa League against Pilsen. So clearly he's still changing players from position to see maybe where they're best and what suits the team the best. I have to say, by now I thought he would know pretty much the strongest 11, and I'm not sure if he has that yet.
Is that also about needing to work out who is going to be on the outs? Because we understand that Ineos there are reports that they're making players available in the January transfer window. Marcus Rashford is one of the names who's mentioned, because you kind of feel a little bit sorry for him. He started not too badly under Amorim. I think he's got 3 goals now so far. And you know, some players are going to leave. We all understand that. Yeah,
I'm just not sure that for Marcus, this new system, the 3-4-2-1 formation with the 2 inside 10s again and the lone striker just suits him. And I'm not sure he's a wide player that is maybe not a traditional winger that stays by the line, but just loves that width and just being there and then coming in down to his right foot from the left. There's just not that position there.
I think even for him though, I think he's had a tough probably last 2 seasons. He doesn't look like the sort of player that's thriving, that's loving it. So I think maybe for him, you know, he'll feel how he feels. We aren't privy to that information all the time, but you know, maybe a change is actually going to be something that gives him the chance, because it's tough to see someone so talented just not seeing it consistently as we know we have in the past.
Such a fascinating Manchester derby, because you've got a Manchester United side with a new sheriff, as the commentator said, who's trying to find the best way to use what's at his disposal to get to winning ways, to get into a pattern. You've got a Manchester City side who are in a major slump, a crisis by their high standards, trying to get back to winning ways, and now they meet on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think the loser, if there is a loser, I think would get really hurt. If Pep Guardiola can't win this derby, even if it's just a draw, but if he gets beaten at home by Ruben Amorim and United, which can happen, anything I think really can happen. I know we say it often a bit as a cliche, but anything is possible in the Premier League. We always say that, which is true to a certain extent. But I really think this Sunday game is so open. I think if Guardiola gets beaten, it's 1 win in 10, so it will be 1 win in 11. It will be another defeat, and I'm just not sure how you recover from that, because it's the derby, because it's against a team that really have no right to beat in City, because this United team is just not ready yet. They're not ready to be Forest. How can they be ready to beat a Manchester City Pep Guardiola team? So if they did, then it would be amazing. And for United, could you say there's not pressure so much because it's so new in the Amorim era and it's away from home?
A little bit, but equally I think when you look at the table, I think Manchester United are in a difficult position, and I think there's still a reality of there are players there that are expected to get results. So this type of game, I think for both teams there's pressure, which again adds to the fact that anything could happen.
I think also for United, having lost to Arsenal at the Emirates in midweek and then losing to Forest. I mean, Ruben Amorim came out at half time even before I was in my seat, which is normally quite early. His head in his hands. I found that so unusual. I've never seen that before. He looked as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He was just sitting there, and then he made a couple of changes, lost to Arsenal, and then went on and lost this game to Forest as well. So it could be 3 in a row. Saying.
Yeah, which would be difficult for him, but I think in some way he's quite transparent, which I think a lot of fans enjoy seeing that. I think there's also an element though of those signals are public, and I think part of that will also be to the board and the broader club to be like, out of my system, you know what my system is, you wanted me to come in. I think there'll be some of that to be like, I'm asking my players to do things, and maybe I just need a couple more pieces to be able to actually do what I'm asking them to do.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at United overall, like off the field as well. Never mind those results, Dan Ashworth was a big... Yeah.
But even for Amorim, just to continue with what Rachel was saying, for such a dogmatic coach that has a very particular way of playing, to not being able to train because they had 10 games in 32 days. So there's, you prepare for the game, you play the game, you rest, then you prepare for the next game. So there's no training sessions per se. And if you look at their warm-up before games, it's almost actually like a training session. The back five are there, the front four, front five is there, and it's just not like a normal warm-up that other teams do, because he doesn't have the time to work on things, and he needs to utilize every single time that he has, whether it's warming up before a Premier League match or whatever match, to be able to make those players work into that system. And it must be so hard for someone. If you really are more of a pragmatic coach, you walk in, it's all about game management, man management, putting your arms around the players, etc., etc. If you're a dogmatic coach that asks things very demanding, not being able to train properly is a problem.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Pep Guardiola now. He's been talking about City winning just one of their last 10 games.
You want to do your best. I want to do my best. And when I do my best in the good moments, we're happier. But when I arrive the next game, I'm concerned the same right now. What I have to do, what the lineup will be right, will be wrong. I do the same. So there is no human being that make an activity like they want to do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't happen. It's the same. And all the managers are more concerned with it because they have responsibility for his people, for the players, for the. Of course, the support that club more than anyone else, so they want to do well. But sometimes, for the reason why I explained the last month, still we have to keep walking. So, the moment sometimes, in the period you go through in the bad moments, in the bad times, you know that? But the problem, you have to keep walking, but the problem is the bad moments, it's not you. The situation is still, but not you. You are fine. We are fine. But we don't have results, and we have to, of course, do it. But even if it's not going to do good results, we have to keep walking. So that you have to do. It's the only chance.
Fascinating in midweek, after losing to Juventus, Ilkay Gundogan spoke about the fragility, the loss of confidence that they have, and Pep Guardiola immediately afterwards kind of seemed to negate that. What did you make of that manager and player?
I thought it was really strange because they almost said two things opposite to each other, because Pep was like, we played great, I'm so proud, we didn't give Juventus anything, and they lost 2-0. And Gundogan said, listen, we have a big mental issue here, we've got problem psychologically, we overcomplicate things, we struggle in duels. I think he made a really good point. He said, when we lose one duel, then the transition is so hard, we concede a chance, we concede something. Which I think has been part of the problem, the lack of intensity of the City team. But he felt like Pep was a little bit in denial, and maybe he just wanted to have a very reassuring message to his players. But then your captain on the night just goes and tells the truth, basically. So I'm just not sure. I think Pep is struggling right now in his communication, in his choices on the pitch. Maybe he doesn't have as many options because there's a lot of injuries still. But I think he's struggling. 1 win in 10, 7 defeats in 10. For a manager like him, I just never thought we would ever say that about Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, it's the same number of defeats they've had in the last 10 as they've had in the previous 105 games.
Exactly.
So uncharted territory, I mean, that is the definition of it.
It's crazy.
Does Pep know how to get them out of this crisis? What's your...
I think he's certainly a top manager, and he's got top players. So I don't think it's in a position whereby he can't get them out of it. Yeah. But it's just such a unique situation. I think the first couple of games we all just thought, well, they'll get back to winning ways and that'll be it. And it just, weeks keep passing and we're like, again and again. even in that Palace game, you thought when they equalised, you thought, okay, they've probably gone and win. We've seen so many times. It's just such a strange situation, and I think Gundogan being honest, I think was very interesting because perhaps so many teams are used to Premier League's so volatile. You win, you're going to lose at some point in the season. You just got to pick yourselves back up and go again. But because Man City have won so consistently for so long, you just think that confidence thing is possibly hurting them a little more because a lot of those players have just not experienced this.
Yeah.
So it's almost that it is natural that it would be a psychological hurdle for them, but they've still got so much quality.
I think we also, most of us, have PTSD because of City. Post-traumatic stress.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because City, the second they lose or drop points, everyone thinks, oh, this is it, they're falling apart, and then they don't. Even Ruben Amorim said in that interview, in January, they go on a run and then they manage. Everyone's expecting that from City. So this position, it's almost like you can't quite believe what you see.
True.
It's something we've never seen before.
I agree with you to a certain extent because then there are numbers and stats and things that we see that you just know there's a problem there. And Glasner said something really interesting after the 2-2 against Palace when he said, we've noticed that if you outrun them, then they struggle. And if you look at the team that caused them a lot of problems, from Sporting Amorim, who ran a lot that night, from Palace at the weekend, from Bournemouth, the second half against Brighton, even to a certain extent, maybe the first half against Arsenal, although they were not that bad that day. But of those 7 defeats, a lot of those defeats came against teams that were more intense than them. And I never thought I would say that about a Guardiola team that always had a lot of the ball, but was just always very intense. The counter-pressing was really super efficient all the time. They would lose the ball and recover straight away, super high on the pitch. That's not there anymore. And you go through them like you go through melted cheese that you love in the UK. It's just like this. What's going on here? And I wonder if right now the players just can't give more physically because it's been already a long season. You don't have time either to work too much on the fitness because you play every 3 days. And for me, that's the biggest problem they have.
It's interesting you talk about Oliver Glasner's post. Okay. No, not cheese, but thank you for bringing that up. You talked about Glasner's post-match. I interviewed Hughes on that day and he got 2 assists and he talked about the first goal. And he said, we knew if we played it over the top, we'd find the space. It's like teams have worked them out, and where before City would have been able to outscore, even when they had that weakness, they're not able to do that right now somehow.
I think even that's the other part of the psychological thing though, is that teams now know this can be our moment. Teams now have that confidence, whereas in the past, a lot of teams would have said, we've got City this weekend, it's going to be a tough day.
Yeah.
And that might only be small things, but it is the difference of, just those forward passes, or just taking that extra risk, or maybe your 9 is ready to be on the shoulder because they think, I've got a chance of getting in here. But for so long now, so many teams have just been used to not knowing with Man City this weekend, we're going to give it our best, but it's going to be a tough day. Whereas now that's a different narrative. So it's sort of a double swing against City. Their own players are suffering, but then teams are going there or having City come to them and going, we've got a shot today.
That era of invincibility is just not there at the moment. So what you're saying is, given the position Manchester United are in and the position Manchester City are in, just expect chaos on Sunday. Is that the general message?
Could happen.
Oh, I love it. I love it for the plot.